Hey you guys, Board Game Critic here, and it's my week to publish to the Board Vengers YouTube channel, and I wanted to ask the Board Vengers what they thought their essential game was. This is a game that is almost guaranteed to be liked by anybody, and just is kind of an essential for any collection that you won't regret having on your shelf. When you play it, it is almost universally loved. What are those games that just stick out in your collection as a must-have? Thank you everyone for being here. Like, subscribe, all of that stuff. It really keeps the Board Vengers as a group producing high quality content. So thank you so much. Let's go ahead and cut to some of their answers and then I'll come back for mine.
Mi gente, it's Roberto here. I love this question. What game would I recommend to anybody to play? I actually broke this down into two different categories. The first being actually anybody to play. So my recommendation is gonna be, let me pull this off from the side here, Splendor by Space Cowboys. Now, I choose this one because once you buy this game, you open up the box, everything, you kind of recognize immediately what's in it, right? There's poker chips that represent the gems. You have these cards that are in there that are tiered 1, 2, and 3. And gameplay is relatively simple. You draw gems, or you use your gems to complete other gem cards, so that way you start producing things. I've played Splendor with plenty of people already, and everyone I play Splendor with absolutely loves it. A lot of them do end up going out to buy it, so that way they can play it at home. And it plays great at 2 players, so I absolutely chose Splendor as anyone in particular. Now I want to go a little further because I have that game for anybody. The second category I decided to choose from this is a game that I would recommend to other people that play board games. And that is going to be Dinosaur Island by Pandasaurus. I really do like this game. Look at this artwork. This artwork is wonderful. Love this artwork. From the theme to the gameplay, you're able to create dinosaurs. You put dinosaurs in your park. You have little hooligans who cause some trouble. It's a fun time. It's good, clean fun. And those are the 2 games I would absolutely recommend to anyone from a beginner level to someone who really likes to play board games.
McKay asked the Board Vengers to come up with their essential board game, and the very first thing that popped into our heads was this game. What is it?
Project L. So this game is great because whether you are new to board games, you like light games, heavy games, whatever style game, if we ever bring this to the table, everyone enjoys it.
I completely agree. So in Project L, you're using these really cool Tetris-like pieces to finish these dual-layered tiles. They're really cool because the pieces fit right inside. So it's kind of nice how kind of fancy and upgraded that is. On your turn, you get 3 actions. And with those actions, you can take a puzzle piece from up here. You can take a level 1 piece, which is a level 1 is just a 1 size piece. You can upgrade a piece. So if I turn in a level 2 piece, I can upgrade it to a level 3. So level 3 would be anything that covers 3 squares, the straight 3 or the angled 3. You can place a piece one piece into a puzzle from the pieces that you have. And here's the interesting thing about the game. You start with just a 1 and a 2. And completing puzzles scores you points and also rewards you with more pieces. So if I take an action to place a puzzle, that's a whole action. Really, the meat of the game revolves around what's called the master action. So for 1 action, you can place a puzzle piece on each of the puzzles in front of you. So in the beginning of the game, you only start with 2 pieces. So doing a master action isn't really very good. You want to focus on 1 puzzle to get more pieces. But as you play the game, as you finish the tiles and gain more pieces, you can start to expand out more and more. So there's this interesting thing about in the beginning you can handle 1, and when do you have enough pieces to handle 2, and when can you do 3 and 4 where you're playing multiple puzzles simultaneously. So There are the white tiles that give you better puzzle pieces with fewer points, and there's the black tiles, which are harder to finish. They score big points. They don't really reward very good puzzle pieces. However, as soon as this black tile or pile of black tiles runs out, the game is over. And it's as simple as that, right? I essentially just taught you how to play the game. There's a couple of rules around when tiles come out, and that's about the only extra rule. So you now know how to play this game, and it's that simple to teach people at the table too. It's one of the main reasons why I think this is such a good candidate for an essential game. So not only is this game an easy teach, but it covers my absolute most important thing for an essential game. It's easy to pick up and play if you don't want to invest a huge amount of mental effort, but if you do want to put in a large amount of mental effort, there is so much opportunity for balancing of when you get more pieces, when you upgrade, which pieces you get, when do I switch from the white to the black tiles, am I getting enough points, how many can I support, 1, 2, 3, 4, that like balance act you can like invest so much mental energy into, and at the same time, everybody else at the table can have just as much fun just filling out their little puzzles.
Yeah, that's me. So I'm not investing that much mental energy, but I like the quality of the game. I like that the little pieces are indented for your nice little tiles. I like just even playing with the tiles. And for me, even if you have no idea what to do, you can honestly just look down and go, oh, I need this shape. I'll just get that shape this turn.
Yeah,
it can be super simple.
I mean, the components, if for a small game in a small box, it's like, they're like top tier, right? Like these cards, which are like double layered cardboard that the tiles fit perfectly into, and then these little clinky little tiles with little pieces. I mean, that's one of those things that's just like, you could take this out to show people, and they're like, wow, this is really cool. This is cool looking, and then you teach them how to play, and you're like, oh man, I totally get this. I want to play this. We've had that experience playing this with our kids. We've shown this to friends who, as soon as they play it, they like nudge their significant other, and they're like,
my birthday's coming up.
Yeah, like, how much did this cost?
Yeah. It's always a winner.
Absolutely. Good game.
All right, my essential game, a game that I am so happy to have on my shelf that we keep pulling out over and over and over again, and almost anybody that we play it with feels like they have to get it, is Karuba. Karuba was nominated in 2016 for the German Game of the Year, and for excellent reason. It is addictive, it's strategic, but not overbearing. Has a little bit of a race. It just has so many of these good little nuggets of a game in it. There is almost always something for somebody to love in Karuba. Every game of Karuba is different. In Karuba, each player is part of a team of explorers. Each team is setting out for a specific temple deep in the rainforest. Each round, the tile that you get will be the same as your opponent's, but how you choose to use that tile may be wildly different. You can burn a tile in order to get movement for your explorers, or you can place them to find a path through the forest. The way this game plays astounds me game after game as people continually thwart my strategies, or I prove the upper hand as I create the better network of tiles throughout the rainforest. There's also a really tricky element in Karuba where you can stop and pick up gems, but a lot of times that depends on you burning exactly the right tile to get the right number of movement, or else sacrificing some of your movement so that you can stop early and collect those gems or the gold. So many games come down to who has collected the most gold or diamonds along the path, but that takes time, and it takes making concessions in other areas to pick those up. Karuba doesn't have any language requirement. It doesn't have any writing or reading responsibility, which means that it can be played with really young players. The game tends to be fun whether or not you end up winning. There tends to be no player-to-player interaction, which I know some people don't love, but I personally really enjoy that. That means we can sit down, we can play a game, and we're not super held up by what other players are doing. We can just do our thing, play our game, and see who comes out on top. There is one tricky player-to-player portion, though. The player who gets to a temple of a certain color first gets more victory points than everybody who will get there after. This creates some super interesting opportunity to look at your neighbors, try and evaluate how long they have before they need to get somewhere, and maybe try and beat them or sneak up before they can get there. It's a great time. Karuba is just one of those games that I think it'll stay in my collection forever. We pull it out pretty regularly. It's one of those, works for gamers, works for non-gamers. It is an excellent one that we can introduce to people. Let's go ahead and continue on and hear what the rest of the board vendors have to say.
I personally would recommend Marvel Champions by Fantasy Flight Games. It's a fantastic one-player game, two-player game, maybe 3- and 4-player game, I'm not sure. But as far as those 2 play counts go, it's really, really great. When you start with just the core box, there's a ton there for players. There's 5 different heroes, 3 different villains. There's a way to make it harder, to make it easier. It's really kind of a great experience all around. It's very accessible, especially early on. There's not too many moving parts to keep track of, but the challenge is still there, right? Then if you decide to dive deeper, if you choose to, we know most board gamers like their expansions, you can slowly expand out the content, right? You can get boxes with more villains and more campaign aspects to it, or you can just get more heroes if that's what you're more interested in. And it's a product line that Fantasy Flight is still, frankly, pouring a lot of money into right now and expanding its content. So it's going to be alive for years to come. I think it's a really fun, unique experience, and it's got a good theme to it. It wouldn't take long for you to learn the rules, or for somebody else to, or for you to teach somebody else the rules. So that is what I would recommend to anybody.
Hey there, this is Dave with Game Foundry. And in pondering the question, if I was to recommend a single game that I think anyone would enjoy, I think my answer would have to be a little bit of a cheat. So I'm actually going to give 2 games, but they're 2 very related games. They're kind of considered brother and sister games. It's Parks and Trails. So what I like about these games is, you know, the mechanisms in these games are pretty straightforward, pretty easy to understand. You're just moving along a trail that you're hiking on and selecting an action in each of your turns, collecting resources, and ultimately you're collecting, you know, proof of having visited a park of one kind or another. You're also taking photographs and enjoying the journey, and it's really, you know, who doesn't relate to that pleasant experience of walking along a trail among nature? And, you know, there's the competitive element to it, of course, but everyone wins really because it's such a pleasant experience. The art is so appealing. It has that kind of vintage national parks poster feel to it. And it's just aesthetically such a nice game, a pleasant, relaxing experience. And it's one that, as I've introduced both of these games to people, the experience has always been very positive. And really, it depends on how serious of a gamer folks are as to which one I would generally recommend, and also playtime. If it was just something to pull out and play in maybe 20 minutes, I'd probably pick out Trails. But if folks were interested in a little bit more in-depth experience, then I'd go with Parks, which has a bit more strategy to it and a bit more going on mechanically. I've even come up with a way to bling my game of Trails. I upgraded the bird trophy to this fun little 3D trophy. But definitely Trails and Parks, great pair, great for, you know, game groups, great as a little bit of a filler for Trails, and just great for a family gathering, one that I would be very comfortable introducing to just about anyone.
Hey, what's up? It's Nelson from Fantasy and Some Flights, and today we are taking a look at what I consider the essential game that every person should have in their collection, and that is Seven Wonders by Anthony Balsa. So this game, as you can tell, has seen a lot of love from me. It is one of the first games that kind of made it into my collection when I decided that I was going to become a board game player and a board game hobbyist, and I was going to start collecting all of these games, mainly because of all of these awards that it got, and that seemed pretty intriguing to me. But if you have not played Seven Wonders, one, you should go out and play it. It's awesome. It's a card drafting, civilization building game that plays in roughly about 30 minutes once you kind of know what you're doing. It has a lot of simultaneous play, which really helps, and the essential part of it is it feels like it can work with any skill level or any type of player. where I've introduced new players to it and they pick it up and they want to play again immediately. And because it's such a short game, you can do that. You can get repeat plays in a single night. Or once you become a little bit more experienced, you start understanding the cards and trying to build towards different strategies. It kind of opens up a whole nother level of play, which more experienced players tend to find very exciting. So Seven Wonders is the essential game for my collection. It is not one of the heaviest games in my collection. However, it's one that I have gotten, I would say over 50 plays easy. Just because I would sit down and play it over and over and over and over again just to try out different strategies, and it's just a great game. The base game is really awesome, but the expansions really is what breathes excellent life into this game. And I hate recommending a game saying that you have to buy expansions. That is not the case for Seven Wonders. It just amplifies the experience so much that I highly suggest getting at least the Leaders expansion. The Leaders expansion not only opens up new strategies, but I think that it really helps new players because it helps give them a direction and a path to go. And so Seven Wonders with the Leaders expansion is my vote as the essential game for anyone's collection. Cheers.
Hello gamers, it's Professor Meg, and when McKay asked me what my essential game was, I think we all know exactly what my essential game is. But when I try to think of a game that I think is essential to any collection, to any new player that I love to introduce them to, that I love to play at game night, a game I love to play during the week, all the time, would be a lovely game by Pandasaurus Games, Sonora. Sonora is a flick and write, and it was my first and write I ever played. So before I ever played a roll and write or a flip and write, I played a flick and write. And what that means is there's this board, and it comes with this tray that's around it, so that you can flick little tiles of your color into the board. So on your turn, you'll put 2 at a time, and take turns going around, and you'll get to flick 2. So this one's a 4, and I landed in the ruins. So I'll score 4 points in the ruins. And what that means is I'll take my player sheet, and you will get 4 points for this area. So for the first area that's the ruins, you are just basically filling in the grids. You'll score points, but you have to be the first or hopefully second person there. If you're too late, you lose the points. The next one is you're paying for different shapes, and with those shapes you're trying to reach different things. You're trying to get different cactuses of the same type, or just different things that are different abilities throughout the game. And then there's the creek bed. The creek bed, you are paying points to go down different trails and trying to land in the most advantageous place, trying to go as far as you possibly can. And then there are the mud cracks. The mud cracks, you're trying to make little triangles and tie everything in together to get the things within those triangles for points. So it's a really great game. It's really engaging because you're flicking with each other, and you're knocking people's tokens around, and sometimes they're flying right off the board, but then you're also playing, you know, a little puzzle with yourself where you're just trying to get the most points and no one's really attacking you or coming for anything besides this spot. Yeah, it's a really great game. It's really fun. I really enjoy it. This is Sonora by Pandasaurus Games. Thanks, McKay, for making me think about what would be an essential game for my collection, because I really do love this one and I don't think it gets enough attention. And I think that was a really good question.
You guys, I hope, like me, you were amazed by the variety of answers and the excellent and thought through answers from the Board Vengers. I love hearing these people's game recommendations. Honestly, they're responsible for a huge number of games that I've purchased. We're not trying to get you to buy games, but if you're looking for games that are likely to please and that are just universally pretty approachable, I do recommend you check out some of those on this list. Go ahead and follow, like, and subscribe the Board Vengers account. You should be able to find all of our individual accounts pretty easily if you don't already follow us on other channels. Most of us are most active on Instagram, but a lot of us have YouTube channels and stuff in addition to those.